All right, Adam.
What is pounded into your head the moment you turn 18? Don't spend too much money on the lottery. Don't buy cigarettes. Don't get a tattoo. Don't rack up credit card debt. Probably not. No, you were told it is your moral obligation to vote, that your vote counts. Well, I'm here to tell you that your vote does not count, and basically what your grandma told you was wrong. So how does the president get elected? In November of a presidential election year, which is this year, 2012, each state holds an election in which all eligible citizens can vote. Citizens vote for a ticket of candidates that include a candidate for president and vice president. The outcomes of each vote in each state determines a slate of electors who then, in turn, make the actual choice for the president and vice president. Each state has as many electors as it has senators and members in the House of Congress, for a total of 538, plus 3 for the District of Columbia. In December, the electors meet up in their respective state capitals and cast their ballots for the president and vice president. States may or may not be require their electors to vote for the popular majority, and they may or may not give all their electors to the winner of the statewide popular vote. These ballots are opened, counted, and certified by a joint session of Congress in January. If no candidate wins a majority of the electoral votes, or if the two top candidates are tied, the House of Representatives elects president among the top 5 candidates of the votes. Each state's delegation has a single vote, and basically then the Senate elects the vice president. While this hasn't happened since 1876, it almost happened in the year 2000. It also means that, at least in theory, electors can thwart the popular vote and vote for a candidate not supported by the majority of the voters in their state. In practice, however, the electors are pledged to cast their vote in accordance with the popular vote, and electors who go against the popular vote are extremely rare. It also means this system started in 1787. It wasn't as clear whether democracy at the time would work. In fact, democracy was a scared word, and no one knew what would happen if you were a democracy. The United States was intended as a republic, in which the people would govern themselves through elected officials. Because the role of the president is so important, most of the framers thought that the people can be trusted to elect the president directly. Instead, they elect electors who would convene as a college of electors, of course called the Electoral College, to consider the available candidates and to pick the best man for the job. When it came for voting for the president, the framers of the Constitution decided that the states should do the voting, not the people. It was thought that the United States was not a single nation, but it was literally a union of separate states. So voting for the president was to take place by state, so that each state would have its say. It was up to the states to decide how they ought to vote for the electors, and to a great extent still is. In fact, there is no national election for president, but rather 51 separate elections, one for each state and one for the District of Columbia. For example, in 1824, Andrew Jackson won the most popular vote, but no candidate won a majority, so the House selected a president, and they selected John Quincy Adams. Of course, Andrew Jackson won 4 years later, so he still had a chance, so he still was president. Another example is in 2000. Democrat Al Gore won the popular vote, but lost the electoral vote to Republican George Bush, 271 to 266, because of the vote in Florida, which was a swing state, was so close, multiple recounts had to be done, and the Supreme Court had to settle a lawsuit over whether a recount should continue. Now let's talk about our situation. We live in California, a state that has voted Democratic, 4 Democratic presidents in the last 20 years. We are not a swing state. This is due to our natural liberal thoughts. San Francisco is the gay capital of the United States, and the gays, I don't know if that's not correct, they mainly vote along the Democratic lines because they support the same ideals. Los Angeles is the Hispanic capital of the United States. While they are not all liberal, most see the Republican Party as anti-Hispanic due to the opposition of amnesty for illegal aliens. Until there was a political change in California, your vote will only count as a Democratic vote, and nothing can change this. This can be seen in our current political election. Obama campaigns mainly in swing states. How often has he come here to do a speech? No, not that often. But you do see him come here to fundraise for his campaign. So now that you know that your presidential vote currently has no outcome on the election, it doesn't mean you shouldn't vote. Local elections and gubernatorial or governor elections are counted by popular vote directly, and you can impact these elections. So go visit your local polling place and vote. Don't believe the hype that your presidential vote will count. Thank you.
All right, Muna, what did you think?
I thought that you seemed very comfortable up there and personable. It was like you were talking to us, you weren't reading, you had good eye contact. But in the beginning you said that, your vote doesn't count, but in the end, or later on in the speech, it seemed that you rather had a problem with how the Electoral College works as opposed to just voting. So there was a little bit of controversy there, but in the end you did come back and say that, you didn't not vote or something like that. So yeah, that was it. You had good eye contact and everything, but I think it was a little short.
All right. I think that's kind of funny that you have Adam and the phrase "a little short" put together. That doesn't really work. Maybe he's the tallest or the second tallest guy in the class. I like the rhetorical question you have at the beginning. I think you kind of have a nice twist on your purpose statement at the beginning about how our vote really doesn't mean anything. And I understand the point that she's making, that it seems like it's contradictory at the end of the speech. You kind of go in a different direction. I think you need to clarify, as you're getting into the beginning of the speech, what you are actually saying. And that is that your vote really, when it comes to the presidential election, doesn't carry much weight to it. In particular, your vote here in California. And I think you do a nice job kind of explaining the history of the Electoral College. That does go on for a long while, and that's a lot of information that you're getting for us that doesn't build your argument. Your argument actually starts building when you talk about the political landscape of the state of California. And I know you felt a little bit like you stepped in, the gays, and that kind of language. But you can point out, look, Northern California is extremely liberal. It's dominated by political interests, often that are controlled by, special interest groups like the gay rights groups, that sort of thing. And so that's clearly a different point of view than we've had in much of the political process. It's distinctive. It's definitely outside of what is normal Republican politics, that sort of thing. And Southern California is, largely Hispanic, and they often perceive the Republicans as being antithetical to their interests because they are not interested in amnesty. And so I thought you did a good job kind of presenting those arguments and explaining why California doesn't count in the presidential election process. At least our votes aren't going to make a difference one way or the other. I mean, California's going to go Democratic pretty much regardless of what happens. So I thought that was a reasonable analysis. But I think what you need to do then you get to that second part, it says, but that doesn't mean that your votes in other things don't count, and you could probably develop a little bit stronger argument about those kinds of things. Delivery issues are still a little bit problem. I think you're reading more than you want to be doing at this point. Your voice is pretty effective, but your eye contact